In today's episode of Tales on a Rainy Day is the umbrella that needed two hands. Rain had been falling for 3 days straight. Not the loud kind, not the stormy kind, just the slow, stubborn rain that makes everything feel heavier than it is. And on a night like that, David sat alone in his tiny apartment. The room was quiet except for the sound of raindrops tapping against the window. Then an old radio crackled to life. A familiar song began to play. Brotherly. The voice filled the room, warm, gentle, almost like a conversation. David smiled, then sighed, because the song reminded him of something he had spent years trying to prove wrong, that he didn't need anybody. David was the kind of man whom people admired, hardworking, independent, reliable, the one who always said, "I'll handle it. Need help? I'll handle it. Struggling? I'll handle it. Exhausted? I'll handle it." He wore self-reliance like a badge of honor, and for a while, it worked. At least, that's what he thought. Years earlier, when he was young, life had taught him a painful lesson. People disappointed him. Promises were broken. Friends disappeared when things became difficult. The people he expected to stay left. So David made a decision, a dangerous one. He decided never to need anyone again. At first, it felt empowering. He worked harder than everyone around him, built his career, paid his bills, solved his problems. When others asked for help, he was there. But when he needed help, he stayed silent. Then life did what life always does. It became heavier. His mother became sick, work became demanding, bills increased, sleep disappeared, the pressure kept growing. Yet every time someone asked if he was okay, he smiled and said, "I'm fine." One evening, after visiting the hospital, David's car broke down in the rain. The road was nearly empty. His phone battery was dead. The rain soaked through his clothes. He stood there alone, tired, frustrated, angry. For the first time in years, he felt overwhelmed, really overwhelmed. He looked around and laughed bitterly, not because anything was funny, but because he suddenly realized something. He had spent years building a life where nobody could disappoint him. Unfortunately, he had also built a life where nobody could support him. As he stood beside the road, headlights appeared behind him. A small pickup truck slowed to a stop. The driver rolled down his window. It was Samuel, an old friend, someone David hadn't called in months, maybe years. Samuel looked at him and smiled. "Need help?" David's first instinct was automatic. "No, I'm good." The words almost escaped his mouth, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the rain. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was truth. For the first time, he answered differently. "Yes," just one word. "Yes." Samuel helped him tow the car, then bought him dinner. They sat quietly for a while, listening to rain hit the restaurant windows. The same song from earlier drifted through the speakers. "Brotherly." Samuel smiled. "You remember this song?" David nodded. Then Samuel said something simple, something that stayed with him forever. "You know, strength isn't carrying everything alone." David looked up. Samuel continued. "Strength is knowing when to let someone carry part of the load." Those words hit harder than any motivational speech, because they were true. Over the following months, David started changing. Slowly, awkwardly, he called friends, accepted help, asked questions, shared struggles. For the first time, people saw the real David, not the strong version, the human version. And something surprising happened. The world didn't think less of him. People didn't abandon him. In fact, they moved closer. When his mother needed care, friends showed up. When work became overwhelming, colleagues stepped in. When he felt discouraged, people encouraged him. The same people he had kept at a distance for years. One rainy evening, months later, David sat by his window again. The radio played softly. And once again, Brotherly filled the room. But this time, the song sounded different. Not because the music had changed, because he had. He thought about all the years he spent trying to be an island, trying to prove he needed nobody, trying to carry every burden alone. And he finally understood something. Trees in a forest survive storms because they stand together. Their roots connect beneath the ground. What appears independent is actually supported. David smiled and whispered to himself, maybe God never designed us to carry life alone. Maybe that's why we have family, friends, mentors, neighbors, strangers who become blessings. Because even the strongest person eventually reaches a weight too heavy for one pair of shoulders. And when that moment comes, it isn't weakness to reach for another hand. It is wisdom. Life is not a solo journey. It never was. and it never will be. Sometimes the miracle you're praying for arrives disguised as a person willing to stand beside you in the rain. So if you're carrying something heavy today, don't be afraid to let someone help. Because even an umbrella needs two hands when the storm gets strong enough. And sometimes the greatest strength in the world is simply saying, I can't do this alone. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Tales on a Rainy Day for more stories that remind us what truly matters when life gets rainy.